I split my time these days between the two things that I do. So Yump is a UX and digital agency that I co-founded 3 years ago. And then about a year and a half ago, started Studio Ninja, which is a photography business software. Now, before I get into it, I think the beauty of a meetup like that is to get to know each other a little bit more. So I like to do this just for a show of hands. Just want to know who are consider themselves designers and creatives in this crowd. Okay, great. Everyone can sort of look around and see, who are designers. And what about developers? Okay, awesome. Any researchers here? Oh, great. Well, nice to see. We need to get more of them in the room. And who's looking for a job? There you go. And who's hiring? Cool. We're looking for a senior design contractor. So if you tick that box, let me know. So June 26, 2015, there was one fine day, and essentially one of my friends in the co-sharing workspace that I work with, Chris, he literally just said, "Hey, want to catch up for a coffee? Just want to get your opinion on an idea." I was like, "Okay, cool." And essentially a little bit about Chris. Chris is a wedding photographer. He's been doing that for basically almost all his life. And he basically was so fed up with this particular software that he's using to manage his own business. So that involves clients, jobs, invoicing. And he had a hard time teaching other photographers how to use the software, that he decided that I would just go and mock up my own software in Photoshop. And basically got 70 complete strangers to crowdfund it. And then hire his own developers to build it. Now, he did all this before he had a coffee with me. So I was like, right, you are crazy. But I'm in. So that's, as I say, the rest is history. And so the project that we embarked on became Studio Ninja. So Studio Ninja, in a nutshell, is an online business software, business management software that streamlines client management, automate workflows, and keep track of payments for busy photographers. Essentially, we help photographers save time, increase profits, and succeed in business. One of the most powerful things about this platform that we built is what we call the workflow. Now, it's a specific workflow for photographers because the business model, maybe designers can relate to that a little bit. Essentially, an inquiry comes through the website. They got to follow up with phone calls and emails and all kinds of face-to-face interaction before they convert it into a job. And before they do that, they need to set out quotes and price lists and contracts and all these moving parts, got them all signed and accepted. Then essentially, then there is the big shoot. So we're talking about a wedding photographer in this case. So then there's this big day where, they have to shoot the actual day. But it could be 6 months or 1 year, later, because especially if you're really, really good, you get booked out 1 year in advance. So this big wedding day may not happen till next summer, for example. So there's a lot of time in between, in which case they may get for a pre-wedding meeting. They need to give instructions on how their relatives and family should behave on the day and how they're going to get the best photos on the day. And then there's the big day. Then after the big day, there's all these things that happen afterwards, like retouching and downloading photos and album making, and then coming for a viewing, as they call it. And then before they kind of wrap up the job. So that's quite a specific workflow to a photographer. And you can see there's a lot of bits moving, like invoices and quotes and contracts, and everything needs to happen on time and in a flow, especially dealing with deposits and then pay later. And so photographers are creatives. They can't manage this kind of stuff. They find it very, very difficult. And so the software is designed to help them through that. We have a very simple pricing model, so $30 per month. Really affordable, actually. So as I like to say, we're in the business of making money for our users, which are photographers. Or as I like to say sometimes, we're just in the business of making money. the reason I want to kind of come back to this is because it's really important for us as a startup founders because we also own small businesses on the side, we understand the importance of cash flow and needing to essentially prove our business model as soon as possible. That means we need to be, before we get to that, we also made a decision that it's not necessary for everyone. We decided that we would not have any external investors. This is just all going to come out of our own hard-earned savings, and that's it. And because we do that, which means we have all the control over what happens with the business, we need to make sure that we get profitable as quickly as possible. And that means being very picky about what we spend on, being very lean in all our approach to the way we do things. And one of the criteria that we do is that we try to focus a lot on time and skills. So if we can do it, if we have the time and the skills to do it, we will do it. So instead of outsourcing it or paying someone else to do it, we also do this thing called penniless marketing. We find different ways and various ways of marketing without spending a single cent. For example, you can go to a forum and post, so go to a photography forum and brag about your software without paying anyone anything. You can just go there and sign up and post something, yeah? You could go into Facebook groups and do the same. You could, many different ways you could do it. But, we pretty much exhausted everything that we could think of. Actually, there's more. We've been talking to a few so-called growth hacking specialists, and there's been some great ideas that have come through. And we have a very much just enough approach. So everything is just enough research, just enough design, just enough development, just enough features to get us to the next phase. We don't have a publicly available roadmap. We don't think 2 years in advance. We may not even survive. Just saying. 3 months pretty much is how far we look. So my role on Studio Ninja is really, has been my area for a long time, is in research, design, and user testing. And the thing about running an agency, the agency side of things is that when you do that, you often you're not a client. So we would do the research, do the design, do the user testing, involve some users to do that. And then we would basically go, here's the product client. And then the client would have to take all the complaints and whatever that comes out of that from their own users. And then they will feed that back to us, usually as an agency, and then we will go back and go, okay, how can we work on that? How can we improve that? How can we iterate that? The biggest change with that, with my gig at Studio Ninja, is that I now also have to do customer support, which is a bit of a shock to me when I started doing it. Because, as a designer, you are often protective about your design. And as experienced as you are and as open-minded as you are, when you get through one of those angry emails, you're just like, but what I found was that customer support actually fits really nicely into this iterative process of design. You start with research, which we do as much as we can. We have a core group of photographers that we really rely on for feedback. We have a few wedding photographers, a few portrait photographers. We've gone to their house and do co-design together, which is great. And we run a Facebook group, so we do a lot of surveys and sort of like impromptu polls on the group, and we get a lot of response. People love the product, and so they're like, I want to tell you what I want, next month. And so that fits into design. And then obviously, once the design is in kind of like prototyping stage, we will invite some of the photographers in to test it before we actually develop anything. And then customer support really fit in nicely at the back. So when the thing is released out in the public, you never know what is it like to be used by 600 users until it's out there used by 600 users. And then you get all kinds of, support requests. And we find that a lot of those feedback from that stage really fits really well into our next phase of research and design. So a little bit about our timeline. We started in June 2015. I told you that one fine day was pre-sold to 70 users already. And then we spent about 6 months in initial development. And then in December 2015, we launched our beta. And by that time, we had a bit of buzz. We got a lot of people on the waiting list. They're all like, yeah, let me show me the real thing. And then we launched it. And to say that it was an anticlimax would be an understatement. As I found out two things, that it's easier to convince someone to spend $150 on something that doesn't exist than to spend $30 on something that exists. And that there is 1,000 different ways of saying sorry. So between